Hi. Okay. I'll speak briefly here on why are Nigerians becoming economic refugees in Ghana. Now, I need you to watch this video, just like a minute of this video, of a Ghanaian analyzing the economic sojourn of Nigerians, but not just Nigerian youth, or adults, plus also Nigerians and Chadians, Malians, people from the West African sub-region, congregating in their thousands, in Ghana to seek a better life for themselves. The way Nigerians hitherto used to seek, go in search of greener pastures in Canada, UK, America, France, and all of those places. Nigerians are now seeking economic refugee status in Ghana. Watch this.
Now, Ghana is experiencing a significant wave of migration from its West African neighbors, ladies and gentlemen. The numbers are coming in from four particular countries: Niger, Ivory Coast, Togo, and Nigeria. And in this video, I want to zoom in on the numbers coming from Nigeria particularly, because not I hold something against them, but because they form the majority of immigrants from West Africa to Ghana. Now, the first question I wanted to know for myself was, what is driving these numbers, ladies and gentlemen? What are the stories behind their movements? And I was very interested in this when I was doing my research. And now I have discovered three major reasons why many youths from Nigeria have decided to move out of their country to Ghana. So without further ado, let's get into it.
Okay. Yeah, I just needed to say that brief, just to hear briefly from this Ghanaian. So let me get right into my take. Now, why are Nigerians migrating to Ghana as economic refugees? Why? Three reasons were identified in the video. I just showed you a snippet of, and these reasons are as follows. Number one, standard of living. You know, um, the per capita income. These are the things that comprise how you measure standard of living of any nation's people. The people's standard of living. Number one, per capita income. Um, you know, in the image you're seeing, Ghana has a far better per capita income than Nigeria. As you can see in the image. Number two, security. I'll speak more on that shortly. Third reason, efficient transportation system, which is more or less non-existent. Public transportation system, more or less, non-existent in Nigeria. There is no highly developed, industrialized economy in the world that does not have a state-led, highly, heavily subsidized public transportation system that is targeted to moving the masses of the people, goods and services. Without that, you don't have an economy. Another reason is inflation rate. The inflation rate in Ghana today, today is the 14th April, is 23.5%. Now, while Nigeria, prior to the recent doctoring that was done by the MBS, as of December, early January, the inflation rate was 34.8%. So there's almost 11% difference between the inflation rates between Ghana and Nigeria. Of course, after the doctoring that was done, they said they did a rebasing and all of that. The inflation rate is pretty much more or less the same now. But like I said, it is fictitious. Anyway, because the question, I say it is fictitious, is because even though you did the rebasing and you brought the inflation artificially down to 23 or 24%, has the purchasing value of the naira at the consumer price index, the cost of goods and services, have they reduced? The answer is no. Another reason, which is also very important, is the purchasing power of the Ghanaian currency. As of this morning again, the Ghanaian currency called the cedi exchanged to the naira at the rate of one cedi to 105 naira. For context, what does that mean? For context, it simply means that one cedi, 100 cedis equals or will get you 100 cedis will get you 10,500 naira. 1,000 cedis, Ghanaian cedis, will get you 105,000 Nigerian naira. If you have 1,000 cedis, you work and earn 1,000 Ghanaian cedis. You would convert it in Nigeria to you know, 105,000 naira. If you have 10,000 Ghanaian cedis, you have 1,050,000 Nigerian naira. If you have 100,000 Ghanaian cedis, you have 10,500,000 Nigerian naira. If you are fortunate to have a million cedis, Ghanaian cedis, you have 105 million Nigerian naira. So that is the strength of the Ghanaian currency, the cedi, relative to the Nigerian naira. So that's the number one reason: standard of living. You know, life is pretty much better in Ghana than in Nigeria. Number two, electricity. Electricity is fairly stable and available. You know, in Ghana, almost 90% of Ghanaian population have access to electricity almost 24 hours daily. So, of the 34.6 million Ghanaians, there is availability of 4,700 megawatts of electricity, guaranteed distribution. Guess what? Nigeria, though, produces or generates well over 12,000, 13,000 electricity we generate. But when it comes to distribution, guess what? We're distributing lower than or approximately the same, you know, size of electricity, that is about 4,000, 4,007, electricity, as to 230 million Nigerians, as Ghana is distributing to just 34.6 million people. Let me take that again. Ghana distributes guaranteed 4,700 megawatts of electricity to approximately 35 million Ghanaians. Guess what? At the best of time, at peak, distribution, periods for Nigeria, we don't even distribute 5,000 megawatts. I can't remember when last Nigeria distributed even 4,000 megawatts. But let us assume Nigeria is distributing, 4.7 like Ghana is doing. But we have 230 million Nigerians scrambling for the same quantum of electricity as the 35 million approximately Ghanaians are doing for the same size. So electricity availability is another reason, the second reason why Nigerians are migrating in their thousands, to Ghana. And then the third reason identified in the video is security of lives and properties. It is guaranteed in Ghana. The various insecurities issues, the insecurity challenges confronted by Nigerians daily are not a challenge to Ghanaians. Terrorism, banditry, kidnappings, armed robberies, herdsmen killings, advanced fee frauds, business email compromise, narcotics, and then the general collapse of societal norms, values, monumental institutionalized corruption, etc., etc. You don't have that as prevalent in Ghana. Of course, there is crime everywhere, even in the Nordic, the Scandinavian countries where human development index has always been pretty high. There's still bits of crime. So every society has got crimes issue, but I don't know of any society except for places that are ungoverned, like Sudan, DRC, Congo, or Afghanistan, and all those kind of, banana republics, that is so insecure as Nigeria. Now, this what I just described. Nigerians migrating to Ghana for economic refugee status. This is history turned full circle. What do I mean? To many of our youth, millennials and Gen Zs, I have to explain and give context. In the late 70s up to the mid 90s, Ghanaians moved to Nigeria in their thousands, if not millions, due to political turmoil and the attendant economic mismanagement and downfall occasioned by instability in Ghana. In that period, the fortunate among Ghanaians, the refugees in Nigeria, took on the jobs as teachers, either in our universities, a few in the universities, and then most of them, I said amongst them, those who were fortunate got jobs as university lecturers, some others as secondary school teachers and primary school teachers. Let me tell you something if you don't know. Ghanaians were really damn good teachers, especially in English language, mathematics, and the sciences. Now, the others who are less qualified, did whatever they needed to do to earn a living, shoemaking, tailoring, and so on. Such menial stuff. It sounds funny, right? It sounds funny, but I just told you the truth. I lived it, I experienced it. Anybody my age lived it and experienced it. You know, in fact, the descriptive, the pejorative descriptive, word for a certain, carry-all bag, that we call Ghana must go. That was where it all came from. When Nigeria suddenly said Ghanaians should go back, because we're having economic issues, so Ghanaians should, we're chasing Ghanaians back to their countries. So the bags they were using to go back, we called it Ghana must go. That's where that bag came from. Now, of course, I also have personal stories of my interactions with a few of my Ghanaian friends, fun stories, really, but that's for another day. Now, 40 plus years afterwards, Nigeria, a country almost 8 times the population of Ghana, endowed with everything imaginable to make a country great, has now become a basket case from which its citizens are fleeing in their tens of thousands to smaller, less endowed, but even far better governed countries. What a great irony. And what a turn of history. What a turn. What a cruel turn, of history. Do you know what kind of jobs our fellow compatriot Nigerians are doing in Ghana? Do you know what kind of jobs they are doing? In the video you watched earlier on, Nigerians are doing, jobs such as selling of mobile phones and its accessories, and also mobile phones repairs, you know. And then most others are doing just menial jobs they can find because they're mostly illegal immigrants without any papers to work. Now, but it's not only in Ghana that Nigerians are languishing, migrating to, and suffering indescribable dehumanization. You all have seen videos and stories of such dehumanizing, pitiable plight of Nigerians. In Iraq, Nigerians are in Iraq. I saw a video a couple of days ago. Nigerians are seeking a living, to earn a living in Iraq, of course in the UAE, in war-torn Sudan and Libya, and some far-flung places on this earth, just to earn a decent living that Nigeria cannot guarantee or provide, its citizens. Now, how did this happen? How did Nigeria arrive at this cul-de-sac? How did we get to this point? The answer is simple: leadership failure. Simple leadership failure. A monumental and egregious failure of ethical leadership. When we talk about leadership, we say leadership failure, we just say it so blaze, we say it so carefree and all of that. No, we need to qualify it. We need to qualify it. Not what we talk about. It is a monumental and egregious failure of ethical leadership. What has ruined Nigeria and made Nigerians become voluntary economic refugees all over the world is a leadership class that is thoroughly deficient in sound personal and group ethics and morality. That's it. And this failure of ethical leadership at every level is at every level. It's not just political, because the natural instinct is to say, okay, so what is talking about political leadership? No. It's a societal-wide collapse, of ethical leadership in our social institutions, public institutions, traditional institutions, worse, religious institutions. A collapse of ethical values, ethics, and morality. Now, these various types of leadership have collectively failed Nigeria and Nigerians in the past 4 decades. I'm telling you the truth. Now, what are the results before us? The results are evident. Insecurity, rampant insecurity, the collapse of the economy, rampant corruption that makes your head dizzy when you hear the scale of somebody stealing, 150 billion, and there's no sanction, no consequence for such, economic acts of sabotage. No consequence. So the results are here before us. And like the popular cliche goes, the chickens have come home to roost. And also, as the great Spanish-American philosopher, poet, and essayist George Santayana famously said, those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it. We've repeated history, we've repeated history, but this time around the shoe is on the other foot. It was on Ghanaian foot, now it's on our foot, because we refused to learn from the past mistakes. of others. Now, until and unless we Nigerians, as a people, collectively say enough is enough and desist from making infantile excuses to justify utterly irresponsible, unethical, immoral, ungodly, and absolutely unscrupulous leadership in every facet of our society, progress and prosperity that permeates and percolates down to every citizen wherever they are in Nigeria will remain a mirage and grand delusion. You know, we must demand for ethical and moral, rebirth of Nigeria. Somebody says they want to be this, they are not morally upright. You cannot vouch for their ethical standing. They have no place in leadership, you know. And I believe strongly that what is going to save Nigeria eventually, there's got to be an ethical revolution in Nigeria. Without an ethical revolution, Nigeria will never make any progress. I don't care even if angels come down from heaven, to govern Nigeria. They would fail spectacularly. And I say that because even from the Bible, angels came to Sodom and Gomorrah. The men of Sodom and Gomorrah attempted to molest, to sodomize the angels because the nations of Sodom and Gomorrah were overtaken with immorality of the most brazen sort. Guess what? Nigeria, in my opinion, has gone way beyond, has become way beyond, has gone way beyond Sodom and Gomorrah in depravity. That's where we are. Until we have an ethical and moral revolution in Nigeria, every other thing we do will be futile. I hate to be the bearer of this, bad news, but that's the truth. We're not going anywhere. Thank you.